mute yourself and then so that you can participate in Kirtan.
Why is that camera now? Oh no, I'm on camera.
Haribol, Lakshmipati Prabhu ki jai.
He's becoming big.
Yeah. He needs a separate.
Okay. No. Krishna Padaya, Krishna Krishnaya, Bhutale, Srimate Bhaktivedanta, Swami Nityanamine, Naya Krishna Padaya, Krishna Krishnaya, Bhutale,
Prabhu Nityananda.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna
Hare
Krishna,
Radhe,
Hare
Hare Ram,
Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram,
Rama Hare
Rama
Rama
Rama, Hare
Rama, Hare
Hare.
Hare.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna
Krishna
Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Hare,
Hare,
Hare
Hare
Ram,
Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare
Krishna
Hare,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama, Hare
Hare
Rama,
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 Rama
Hare Hare.
Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare
Hare Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Hare,
Hare.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama,
Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna,
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Jaya Guru
Gurudev, 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 Jai Jai Gurudev.
Jaya
Jaya
Rama
Radha, Sharat
Rama
Bihari Radha, Sharat Bihari Radha.
Radhe
Jaya
Jaya Radha, Sharat Bihari
Rama
Radha, Sharat Bihari Radha. Jaya Radha, Madhava Radha, Madhava Radha.
Jaya Rama
Jaya Radha, Madhava Radha, Madhava Radha.
Jaya Rama
Radha Shyam Sundar Radha Shyam Sundar Radhe.
Jaya
Jaya
Rama
Radha Damodar Radha Damodar Radhe.
Jaya Rama
Radha Damodar Radha Damodar.
Hare Krishna
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare
Jai.
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 Jai,
Jai.
Jai.
Jai,
Jai.
Jai.
and ki Jai,
Jai.
Jai,
Jai.
Jai,
Jai.
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 Jai, Hare Hare Bol,
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Hare Bo.
Hare Hare Bol,
Hari Nam Sankirtan ki. Jai. Prabhupada
Jai,
Jai. Wonderful Kirtan kids ki Jai. Thank you very much. Lakshmi Pati ki Jai. So Prabhuji has not joined yet. So what we can do is we can quickly recap whatever Prabhuji taught us. Okay, meanwhile he'll join. Is that okay? Can anyone recall?
I can, Prabhu. There's no.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. We started with chapter 2, and then Prabhuji gave us a background as to what happened before that, because mainly chapter 1 was all about the background of the entire Bhagavad Gita, the purpose. So, and then he said Krishna showed Dasyaras to Arjuna, mainly because he's like a charioteer and his friend, and at the same time, he's like, okay, I'm like your servant, I'll follow your orders. So he's like, mainly about the Dasyaras. But as far as Arjuna, like the very first verse, what we started off, like it says about Arjuna, Sanjaya says, Arjuna being full of compassion. So what was Arjuna compassionate about? Then Prabhuji went in detail. And while he was telling us the background and then the purpose, like the first chapter, then he also said the entire second chapter is about three things. One is, what should we do? Why should we do? And then how should we do? And then why it will not change, because we are all servants of Krishna. But what may change based on the situation, because it could be, depending on what kind of confused situation we are in. And then when it comes to this chapter, between Arjuna and Krishna, Arjuna was confused. He was asking, what should I do now? So that was the whole point of the second chapter, where, no, not the whole point, like beginning, he says, okay, Krishna, what should I do now? And then he's asking Krishna because he surrendered to Krishna. And then Arjuna, just that being full of compassionate, and mainly he stressed like 3 points why Arjuna is compassionate, because he's not afraid, but he was compassionate for his own people, his teachers and cousins and all the elders. So not because he's getting scared to fight, and which is compassionate is like any devotee. Mainly we will have we are compassionate, like paradukha dukhi, like we can't see others suffering. It's like that. So that is where why we say Arjuna was trying to be compassionate. And then he was in the confused situation. That's because it's like truly Arjuna's situation is such a confused situation. Like our situations is nothing in front of that confused situations. So in that confused situation, he's asking Krishna, what should I do? He's like full of in the first verse it says Arjuna was full of compassion and his mind depressed, because he's like, I feel so sad to do this. He's like confused and he's depressed and he's full of tears. And then he uses the word Madhusudana, because how Krishna killed Madhu, the demon, like that. We are praying to Krishna that you kill all our sins and doubts. And so that's the significance why uh, the word Madhusudana is used. And another couple more points he made, Prabhuji. The reason why Arjuna is asking Krishna is because Krishna wants to teach him not to escape from that, but to face it, because it's your duty. Just you can't just say, oh, I cannot do this and escape. And Arjuna doesn't mean to escape here, but just because he's confused. So in a way, Krishna is preparing him that you need to learn how to face it instead of just getting escaped. So those are the things mainly highlighted with the 3 points. He was full of compassion and he was full of tears and he was very depressed, and now he doesn't know what to do. So I think that's what I kind of remembered and wrote down, Rauji.
He spoke about only the first verse of second chapter, right?
Yes, this is only the first verse.
Yes.
So the first verse is Sanjay is saying that Arjuna being full of compassion, all that, but he only said only first verse. And then at the end there was more questions about when can we be compassionate, and then how can we like whatever we do, it should please Krishna. So here why Arjuna is asking Krishna is also, what should I do? Because Krishna, whatever you say, whatever pleases to you, now I'm confused, you tell me what should I do. So that's why this whole chapter, Prabhuji said, it's about what should we do, why should we do, and then how should we do. So, and Krishna answers in this chapter. So, like that. It's only one shloka, Prabhuji, yes.
Yeah, very nice, Mataji. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And one of the question, I think Atsala Mataji, someone who asked about the chanting, then Prabhuji said, sincerity is very important. And when we are struggling, when you're trying and struggling, that's what Krishna sees. That's what is important. Outcome is different, but what you try and struggle to do to please Krishna, that's what is more important. And Krishna looks at that. And that will automatically help us how we can observe ourselves um, when we are reacting to a situation, and because we are keeping the thumb rule as pleasing Krishna. So that's kind of he related to this verse, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji. That's yeah, a lot of information actually. So, and anybody else wants to add on this? Now, before Prabhuji joins, he might join anytime now. Anybody wants to share? Haribol, Arundhati Mataji, Ram Prabhu. Okay, So Prabhuji, to start with, he also mentioned that, Krishna being Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? So he still was setting an example of how a servant could be, perfect servant, right? By being a Parthasarathi, right? Charioteer for Arjuna. So that is a perfect example because he was blindly following the instructions of the the master. Master here is Arjuna, and Krishna being charioteer, he was just following the instructions of Arjuna. So that is the best example for as a servant, Dasyaras. So that also Prabhuji mentioned. That is very important point. Um, so keeping this, so let's. We are still waiting for Prabhuji. He might join anytime soon. So what we can do is, as I promised before, that my part was to send the questionnaire for the chapter 1. I'm sorry I couldn't work on it. I'm halfway through, but I will be submitting that very soon. So meanwhile, we can discuss in a like a question and answer session, if that is okay with you, until Prabhuji joins. Okay. So let me ask you a question. So right from the beginning, it could involve chapter 1 also. So why Dhritarashtra had the fear of losing the battle? Can anyone answer?
What was the question?
Why Dhritarashtra had fear of losing the battle? Even before the battle started, Dhritarashtra had internally, he was afraid that they might lose the battle.
Because Krishna was with the other people, so wherever Krishna was available, I think there will be victory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyone else? Kirtida? You raised your hand. Kirtida.
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu. Also, like Dhritarashtra knew about the incidences, what had already happened, where the Pandavas had defeated Duryodhana. Like in the forest, when they were in the forest, Duryodhana went along with his troop, and there he was captured. And Arjuna actually helped him,
Duryodhana.
helped Duryodhan to come out of that this one. So that was one instant. And also like this Viratas, at the place of Virata, at the end, when they were still in incognito also, there was one incident where the Pandavas, everybody except for Arjuna actually, went and they were fighting with one group, and Duryodhana, this was all planned, and Duryodhana came with his group, and he attacked Virata's kingdom, and his son Uttara Kumara went with Arjuna. It's a big story, but then he went with him, and Arjuna, defeated them. Just so everybody ran. So all these things he had already known. The strength of the Pandavas. That's why he was fearing about Duryodhana's victory.
Yes. Thank you, Vatsala Mataji. Thank you, Kirtida. And
Prabhuji, what was the first example Kirtida Mataji said? I didn't get the incident, Prabhuji.
No, in Kamyavan, that is in the forest of Kamyavan, right? So
when was it? Was it before Indraprastha or
no, after that?
While they were still in the forest, it was in Ajnatavasa. When they were, in the forest, this incident happened before incognito.
Oh, before in. Oh, okay. I don't know about that incident, so I was just if any of you can.
No,
little bit
actually,
elaborate.
yeah, Kirtida, you know that instance completely?
Yes, Prabhuji, but I can't remember who attacked them. I think
it is from heavenly. These are
yes.
Gandharvas. Gandharvas attack.
Gandharvas.
Yeah.
Yes, very nice. Surat Prabhu. Surat Prabhu, you know the story?
You can tell.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah, please go ahead. I don't see you.
Please go ahead. I
Yes,
want to
go ahead.
listen.
Pandavas were in Ajnatavas.
Little louder, please.
When the Pandavas were in Ajnatavasa, the Kauravas wanted to make fun because they lost all of them. So they went to where they were. So and then they started like enjoying on the other side of the lake. There was a lake in the middle, and the other side there was Pandavas, and the other side Kauravas. So they were like doing all other enjoyable stuff. So then the Gandharvas in the lake came out, and then they took everybody to their thing, and then Arjun and Bhima needed to come to save them because they knew they were there in the Gandharvas, because one soldier ran to them and then told one soldier escaped from the Gandharvas, so they told what happened to the Duryodhan and the Kauravas.
Very nice. Actually, it is not
Uh,
one soldier. It is Duryodhana's wife. Okay. So Duryodhana's
And
wife went to Arjuna and Bhima. No, actually, she went to Pandavas asking for help, and
Maharaj said,
Arjuna and Bhima, they were not ready to support. They were like happy. Oh, Duryodhan got caught. We are so happy. Then Yudhishthir Maharaj says that, see, in the eyes of outsiders, okay, we are all 105. Okay, we are 105. But in the eyes of inside, we might be 100 plus 5. So they are different party, or we can be different party, but not in the eyes of outsiders. So we are all one in the eyes of outsiders. So you have to go and help. Okay. So that is when they'll go and help. Still after even Duryodhan gets released, still he won't be happy. He'll be scolding his wife. Why did you go to them for taking help? Okay. So that is a
But
consciousness of Duryodhan.
but then did Arjuna and Bhima did they fight with the Gandharvas to
Yes, yes.
get away? Oh,
Actually,
okay.
Gandharvas have this boon that they go invisible. Okay.
Hmm.
And so nobody could fight. But Arjuna, he had got a boon. He had got a boon that if he utters a mantra and shoots an arrow, he can see those invisible also.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So
Okay.
he had that boon. Okay. From
Hmm.
another Gandharva.
Mm-hmm.
So that way, Arjuna was able to defeat the Gandharvas. Okay. So that way they could save Duryodhan also.
Mm.
Okay, so that is a nice pastime. Anyways, now Prabhuji joined. Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam, all worship Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dhanat Pranam, Guru Prabhupada Jai.
Krishna.
Yes, so we were just going through previously whatever you taught us. We were going through that. So we finished the recap. So you can jump into the second sloka.
Okay, Prabhu.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu.
So, Prabhu's Mataji's, my apologies for not being able to do this last week, but sometimes things are outside your control. Everything is controlled by Krishna eventually. So it was just a reminder, So my apologies for that. So you all did the recap as far as what we had covered in text 1. So would one of the kids or would one of the other devotees like to recite text 2, please? Is that how we want to do it, Mukta Sangha Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu. So kids, who else is there? Surat Prabhu, Brinda, somebody can take. Second sloka, chapter 2. Surat Prabhu. Go ahead. Shri Bhagavan
Bhagavanuvacha
A lot of
There is a lot of echo.
maybe I should mute.
Yes, Prabhu.
Kutasthakashmalam
Vichame
Vishame Samupastitam Anaryajishtam Asvargyam
Akirti
Akirtikaram Arjuna.
Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "My dear Arjuna, how do these impurities come upon you? They are not at all befitting a man who knows the value of life. They lead not to higher planets but to infamy."
Thank you, Surya Prabhu.
Okay, so should we go ahead with the discussion now?
Yes, Prabhu.
Oh, thank you so much for that wonderful recitation of the Sanskrit slokas. Very nice. It's always inspiring to hear kids doing these things because, you know, as I mentioned last time too, the kids basically reflect the sincerity of the parents. Of course, they reflect the pious credits that they've accumulated from their previous births. That's why they have such a strong interest in pursuing devotional service, even at such a young age, and they are engaging in these activities of devotional service at such a young age. So that's why it's even more inspiring to hear children do this, because it's a reminder that the basic principle of devotional service is that whatever devotional service we are performing in this life will allow us, by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, by the mercy of our acharyas, to gain entry into the spiritual world. Otherwise, there is no hope. So maybe I'll just quickly, if you don't mind, can I just recite the invocation prayers? I'll go through fast in the interest of time. I know we have to stop at 8:35 today.
Yeah, that's fine, Prabhu. Please go ahead.
Om Gyan Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadhati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yatha Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Shagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So once again, that point was about children reciting the shlokas is a reflection of the accumulated pious credits from previous births, which, if we pursue devotional service in this life, our acharyas promise us, Srila Prabhupada has promised us, that they will arrange for us to gain entry into the spiritual world. So it is, that's why Bhagavad Gita says, Manushyanam Sahasreshu Kaschit Yatati Siddhaya, that, you know, amongst millions and millions of human beings, there's only one who attains or who tries to understand the Supreme Lord, and of millions who try to understand the Supreme Lord, there's one who actually succeeds. in that endeavor. So having devotional credits is the most valuable gift. And this process of devotional service has been given to us by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by Krishna himself in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's form. So that is why this is our greatest fortune. So moving along, in this verse, as the children read, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "My dear Arjun, how have these impurities come upon you?" So impurities coming upon a person, and especially Arjun, was unexpected. And the impurity that is being referred to here is his attachment to, or bodily attachment to relatives. Bodily attachment, that is the impurity. And he says, they are not at all befitting a man who knows the value of life. The value of life, what is being implied here is that the value of life is that we have to use this material body to perform devotional service for the pleasure of the Lord, so that we can stop this cycle of birth and death and get out of this cycle of repeated birth and death, getting one material body after another. So he says, what is the use of this material body if all it does for you is it prepares you for another material body? That's not the proper use of this material body. Proper use is, it is very fortunate to get a human birth, because it's only in this birth that we can think about God. And therefore, Krishna is saying that the proper utilization of this body and of this birth, regardless of your circumstances, because circumstances you don't control, regardless of your circumstances, focus on one thing that you control, and which is whether you want to engage in devotional service or not engage in devotional service. And so that's why Krishna is saying this is an impurity. They are not at all befitting a man who knows the value of life. And Arjun, being a devotee, pure Sakha devotee of the Lord, knows the value of life. And they lead not to higher planets, but to infamy. And actually, Krishna is not even referring to the spiritual world here. He's talking about elevation within this material creation to higher planets. Krishna's actually, as we will see as this chapter progresses, Krishna uses a variety of arguments to convince Arjun to fight. And this variety of argument is presented simply because there are different varieties of students of Bhagavad Gita, different varieties of people who will be listening to Bhagavad Gita. And what I mean by that is, some may be interested in material benefits being elevation within this material creation to higher planets. We are in this material earthly planet. This is, of the 14 planetary systems, this is in the middle. You could go higher, you could go lower. And there are some who would like to go higher in this material creation itself. So Krishna is giving even that argument here, and he's saying, Arjun, if you don't perform your duty, you will not even be able to elevate yourself to the higher material planets within this material creation. So why are you doing this? You know the value of life. And so what our acharyas, what Prabhupada has always emphasized upon is that as far as devotees are concerned, we are not interested in elevation to higher planets within the material creation. We are interested in exiting this cycle of birth and death, in completely going out of this material creation and going back to Godhead, going back to the spiritual world, because that's where we originally come from. So if we go up to higher planets in this material creation, then Bhagavad Gita says, Kshine Punye Mrityu Lokam Vishanti. That when your pious credits run out that have elevated you to the higher planets, again Mrityu Lokam Vishanti, you will come back to this Mrityu Lok. Mrityu Lok is this material, this earthly planet. So here Krishna is using this argument in saying that even if you want to be elevated to a higher planetary system in the material world, you should fight. So what to speak of if you want liberation from the cycle of birth and death, you should definitely perform your devotional duty. And then Prabhupada very nicely explains in this purport that there are three types of realizations of the Supreme Lord: Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavaniti Shabdati. And this is a quotation from the Srimad Bhagavatam. And I guess everybody's familiar with this. Is everybody familiar with the types of realizations, or should we get into that, or should we move on?
Can you go over, please? Thank you, Prabhu.
Sure, Madhavi. So the three types, Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagwaniti, Shabdite. These are Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, and Bhagwan. These are the three types of realizations of the Supreme Lord that a sadhak can hope to achieve. The first one, the most elementary level of the three, and when I say elementary, it is by no means elementary. It is achieving the Supreme Lord. So realizing the Supreme Lord is by no means an elementary thing. But of the three, in relative terms, Brahmeti means attaining to the Brahman effulgence, Brahma Jyoti of the Supreme Lord, reaching the Brahma Jyoti of the Supreme Lord. Higher than that is realizing Paramatma, the Supreme Lord who is situated as Paramatma within our soul. And even higher than that is actually being able, actually attaining Krishna, Bhagwan. Now what happens is the yogis, uh, the yogis and the jnanis, they are interested in Brahmajyoti or Paramatma realization. Now, Prabhupada explains that the deficiency with Brahmajyoti realization is that instead of, so the Brahmajyoti, where is it coming from? It's basically the effulgence of the body of the Supreme Lord. Now, a yogi who wants to only attain to the Brahmajyoti realization of the Lord has an incomplete understanding of the Supreme Lord. And Prabhupada gives a very good example. He says that if you think about it, if you think about what a train looks like, just an ordinary example he gave for easy understanding. If you think about a train has an engine and it has many many passenger cars behind it. So somebody who had never seen a train, there was a village where nobody had ever seen a train before. The train was coming there for the first time. So everybody went to the station to get darshan of the train. Now, when they saw the train coming, it was late at night. So they saw a bright light. That was the light of the engine. And they said, the most enthusiastic person in that group said, "Oh, I have understood. This is what a train looks like." And he went running back to say that, well, the train is actually a very bright light. It looks wonderful. So Prabhupada says that's a preliminary understanding of what a train has. It's one of the features, but it's not a complete understanding. Then some people were more patient. They waited at the station because they saw this light approaching. They waited. As the train approached the station, they were able to see the engine. So somebody got very excited and said, "Oh, so it's a light and an engine." And they went back to the village to tell people this is what a train looks like. But that is compared to Paramatma realization, because Paramatma is situated within our heart. But the incompleteness of Paramatma realization is that even if after years and years of meditation, the yogi is able to realize the super soul within the heart, he can get darshan of him, but he cannot interact with him. So Paramatma will manifest himself to the sadhak, but after that, so the sadhak will experience a lot of peace, lot of happiness, but there will be no interaction. How will you make prasad for Krishna and feed him? How will you make laddus for Krishna and feed him? That you cannot do in Paramatma realization. And then that is why even Paramatma realization is considered less than Bhagwan realization. It is better than Brahmajyoti realization, because in Brahmajyoti you're only seeing the effulgence of the Supreme Lord. In Paramatma, at least you're seeing the four-handed form of the Lord, but you're unable to interact with them. And one big deficiency of Brahmajyoti realization is that it's like flying in an aeroplane. You're in an aeroplane, you're high in the sky, it's very peaceful, very quiet. But you're strapped on your seat. You look outside, it's very peaceful, very quiet. But after some time, you're like, okay, what am I supposed to do? I want to move around. I need activity. I need to do something. And the moment that dissatisfaction comes in the yogi's heart, then they have to come back to this material world. So these are some deficiencies. And that is why the highest realization is that of Bhagwan realization. So in that train example, those people who waited patiently for the entire train to come into the station saw it has a light, it has an engine, and it has train cars. So their realization was complete. And this is how Bhagwan realization means you understand Bhagwan is Krishna. He has the super soul is his expansion. The four-handed Vishnu form, Kshirodakshai Vishnu is within our heart, is his expansion. And finally, Krishna is the source of all light, all effulgence, and that effulgence is simply an emanation from his body. It is not, it represents him, but it is not him, so you cannot interact with him personally, neither in the Brahmajyoti form nor in the Paramatma form. So that is why Bhagwan realization is considered the highest. I hope that was helpful, Madhavi, others.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhuji, it was very helpful.
Thank you, others. Prabhupada gives this very nice example here. And then one of the things that we need to focus on in the purport itself, Prabhupada describes more about the meaning of Bhagwan. And Bhagwan, of course, as we know, is Bhagwan is full in all six opulences. Bhagwan is made up of Bhagya and Van. So one who has full Bhagya, Bhagya is opulence. Van means the possessor. So Bhagyavan, one who possesses all opulences in full, is Bhagwan. And so for ease of understanding of us conditioned souls, Bhagwan's opulences, even though they are unlimited, they are summarized into six. Would somebody like to just recite the six opulences of the Supreme Lord, please? They're in the book.
Yasya Viryasya Yasasasriyaha Jnana Vairagya Yoschaiva Shannam Bhagavan Iti Guna.
Wonderful. That's. I was in fact going to just translate it, Prabhuji. So do you mind just explaining what the six are, just in English? Yes.
Aishwarya is wealth. Samagrasya Viryasya is strength. Aishwaryasya Samagrasya Viryasya Yasha is famous. Shriya Yashasya Shriyaha is beauty.
All riches.
And then Viryasya Yashasya Jnana is knowledge, all knowledge. And Vairagya is all renunciation.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Prabhu. So most people can identify with and understand the first five, but the sixth, Vairagya or renunciation, is very, people say, is that an opulence? That doesn't seem like an opulence. That seems like an arrangement to take away your opulence. So the thing about the beauty about renunciation of Vairagya is that Krishna is fully renounced, and that is his opulence, because he's renounced from all material attachment. He has no material attachment. He's attached to the love of his devotees, but he has no material attachment. So that's why his renunciation of all material attachment is an opulence, because imagine if you have no material attachment, if you are not a servant of Maya, then you are the supreme, then you are supremely blissful. And that is exactly what the situation is in the spiritual world. In a Siddha Deha, when people qualify to go back by the mercy of the Lord, the acharyas, to the spiritual world, they obtain their Siddha Deha. In the Siddha Deha, they enjoy Satchid Anand, full knowledge, eternal life, and complete bliss. And in that blissful state, there is no contamination of material attachment. So that's why Prabhupada is bringing up all these points here, because here Arjun is attached to the body and all the relations associated with the body. And he's saying, Arjun, you need to remind yourself that the Lord is supremely renounced. And so he's giving him this little hint of being renounced from attachment to the body and the bodily relationships. So that is another piece that Prabhupada talks about in this purport. And then finally, of course, Etecha Kala Pumsam Krishnastu Bhagwan Syam. This is a very often quoted verse by Srila Prabhupada, where he talks about the supremacy of Krishna being the source of all incarnations, and all other incarnations being similarly being simply emanations from Krishna. So why Prabhupada is saying this is that, and I'll just quickly just read one line from the purport. In the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Arjun's lamentation for his kinsmen is certainly unbecoming. And therefore Krishna expressed his surprise with the word kutaha, where from? Such impurities were never expected from a person belonging to the civilized class of men known as Aryans. So here, and then of course Prabhupada explains what Aryan means. It has nothing to do with the mundane interpretation of Aryan. Arya means one who is Shresht, a person who is who understands the purpose of life, a person who understands what this body should be used for, a person who understands the Supreme Personality of Godhead is our goal, that service to the Supreme Lord while we're in this material world is our goal. That is an Arya. And not somebody who claims due to some race or genealogical, some kind of lineage that I'm an Aryan. So that has been described here. But now one key thing that I want to focus on before we stop, because we have about another 7 minutes, is why is Krishna using this tactic, this line of reasoning with Arjuna? This is a very key thing. Look at what is happening here. Sri Bhagavan Vacha, Kutas to Kashmalamidam. He's questioning Arjuna. Questioning him. Arjuna, where have these impurities come from? So this is a master-servant relationship. And it is a little bit of chastisement that is going on. And in that chastisement, Krishna is provoking Arjuna. Arjuna, where have these impurities come from? So the thing to focus on is look at Krishna's approach. He's asking Arjuna, where have these come from? In other words, he's asking Arjuna, Arjuna, I want you to think where you have come from. By asking him where have these impurities come from, he's reminding Arjuna to think about where Arjuna has come from. What I mean by that is, as we'll see in the later verses, Krishna, in order to convince Arjuna to fight, gives him a lot of reminders about Arjuna's lineage. He calls him Kaunteya, calls him descendant of Vrishni. He calls him Mahabhaho. Mahabhaho meaning very strong, best of all soldiers. Why is Krishna giving Arjuna these reminders? Does anybody want to take a try at that? Why is Krishna giving Arjuna these kinds of reminders?
Maybe he's making him realize you are such a great person. And so a person like you we cannot expect to have this kind of impurities coming, you getting these impurities. So he's reminding him how great you are, and how can you fall down like this by being so depressed like that.
Right. That's very good line, Madhuri. And little more, if I may go a little bit further, when he says that what you just said, Madhuri, that Krishna is reminding Arjun, you are such a great person. But one thing Krishna is doing is he's not trying to appease Arjun's false ego by saying you're so great. He's trying to prod Arjun to think of something. And that something is, what is the source of his greatness? So what is the source of his greatness, Madhuri? If anybody would like to address that. You're right that Krishna is reminding Arjun about his greatness, but he's also hinting at Arjun's source of greatness.
Prabhu,
Yes, Mataji.
I think he's a Kshatriya. Kshatriya's quality is to be getting involved in fight, and also he's the closest friend of Krishna. So being a Kshatriya, you should never waver at fighting. That is unqualified quality. And he shouldn't have this kind of thoughts for a person who is great warrior.
Right. So that is so he's reminding him about his Kshatriya roots. Okay. Very nice. And there's one more that is made in the Sanskrit itself, in the verse itself. And we just discussed the meaning of that also.
He's Aryan.
Yes.
Which you just said, right? He knows the value of the life. So a person who knows he's a Kshatriya and who also knows the values of the life, such person is not expected to have this kind of impurities.
Right. So now we've identified the references that Krishna is using to remind Arjun of his lineage. And what is the strategy behind Krishna's approach? Why is Krishna taking this approach? Why is he reminding Arjun of his lineage? Why is he saying, Arjun, you are Aryan, you are Kshatriya, you know the purpose of life? What is the purpose for doing that? We know, on the surface, we say that he wants him to feel inspired to fight. But what is the mental tactic that Krishna is using?
Not the body, he's the soul.
Yes, and the Aryans understand that very clearly, that we are not the body, we are the soul. So that's why Krishna says, Kuta, where have these impurities come from? Impurity meaning association with the body and not the soul. And so in the interest of time, I'll just jump to what the mental tactic that Krishna is using. The tactic that Krishna is using by explaining or bringing in all these references is that he is building Arjun's self-confidence. Right now, if you imagine the scene, Arjun is depressed. He's kept his bow and arrow down and he's lost his desire to fight. Krishna is now boosting his self-confidence. And one of the biggest motivators, and we are using this, or we are trying to understand this based on the Bhagavad Gita, but these are things that people, motivational speakers, try and use without realizing that all of this knowledge is actually coming from our Shastra. And we are seeing the most perfect example of this approach where Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is using this approach. He is motivating Arjun by reminding him where Arjun is coming from. He's reminding him of his association with Kshatriyas, his association with Aryans, his association with his clan, with his forefathers, with his lineage. He's saying, this is where you're coming from. So how can you conduct yourself in a manner that is not befitting your lineage? You see, he's using this as a motivational exercise, as a motivational strategy to get Arjun to fight. So from him, and this is spiritual motivation. He's not motivating him to go steal. He's not motivating him to have false ego. He's motivating him to perform his duty, to perform his spiritual duty, his duty to Krishna. Because he's saying, Arjun, you come from a lineage of devotees. You come from a lineage of people who never waver in the execution of devotional service. So why are you wavering in your execution of devotional service? So one of the biggest lessons in developing self-confidence, and this applies to all of us, just like Krishna is helping Arjun develop self-confidence by realizing who he is associated with and who he cannot let down. Similarly, if we use this example in our lives, If we remind ourselves every time that we waver in our performance of devotional duties, who are we associated with? And what is our crown jewel? Anybody, please. What is our greatest claim to fame as devotees, or we are trying to be devotees, aspiring devotees? What is our greatest association? What is our greatest claim, greatest association in this regard?
Greatest association of, you mean to say, can you come out with the question again, Prabhu, please?
So my question, Prabhuji, is just like Krishna is asking Arjun, Arjun, think about what your lineage is. You're Aryan, you're Kshatriya, you're from Pandu's family, Varshini king family, etc. Similarly, if we use that tactic on us, what is our association? What is our lineage? Devotional lineage. What is our lineage that we can be proud of? Not
Prabhu, it's our lineage. I think we are under the disciplinic lineage of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We are under the protection of Prabhupada. That is the biggest a plus point that we all have. That Prabhupada is so merciful. He knows even more than Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. At the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there were people who could chant like 100,000 Harinams, but we are just chanting like 16 rounds. And Prabhupada has given us so much of lenience. He has been so lenient with us, and he has given us full protection. So I think that is the biggest advantage we have.
beautiful. That's exactly right. So we can remind ourselves, we can remind each other, this Sangha of devotees, we are together only because of Prabhupada. Otherwise, how would we have even come together like this? And all we are doing is glorifying Krishna. The reason we are here is to follow Prabhupada's instructions, to engage in Krishna Katha and glorify Krishna. This has nothing to do with our glorification or our qualification. We have nothing. We are we are insignificant. But because we are attached to the most significant person, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, through Prabhupada, through the lineage, we are our greatest claim to fame, not claim to fame, our greatest blessing, greatest good fortune is that we are somehow, by the mercy of Prabhupada, associated with the Brahma Madhav Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. So we are following the teachings that are coming from Krishna to Brahmaji through Madhvacharya, through Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, hence the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, and through all of our Acharya, Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Prabhupada. So if at any time, my point of bringing all this up is that the situation that we are witnessing in Bhagavad Gita right now is that Krishna is reminding Arjun, think about your lineage and see what that means to you for performing your duty. Same way, if we think of our lineage, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Prabhupada, all our acharyas, such wonderful examples, highest possible standards. This is who we are. We are under their shelter. So it is then our responsibility to try and live up to their expectations, to try and perform our devotional service as sincerely as we can. Now, we are we are fallen. And our devotional service is never very perfect. It is always full of mistakes. But if we try our best, Prabhupada is so merciful. If we try our best, that is what he wants to see. That we are constantly trying to improve ourselves. We can never go up to Prabhupada and say, Prabhupada, now I'm doing everything perfectly. Can I please come back to Godhead? Right? That's ridiculous. That will never happen. But Prabhupada will see that we are trying to do things sincerely. And he said to his disciples, is there in Prabhupada Leela Amrita, he said, I have the keys to the back door of the spiritual world. Confidential servant of Krishna. So if Mahaprabhu could convert Jagai Madai into devotees, that is our greatest hope. That this is the lineage that we are following. Jagai Madai could be rescued. So we will also, as long as we try, As long as we keep putting in our effort, as long as we follow and not make obvious mistakes, seventh offense, committing sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name, don't do things. As long as we don't do like that, then we can expect Prabhupada to make up for our deficiencies and allow us to come back to the spiritual world. So it's 8:37. I'll stop here. Sangha Prabhuji, what are the next instructions? What should we
Thank you.
Q&A?
So if anyone has any questions, we can go another 10 minutes is okay, Prabhu.
Okay, Prabhuji. Okay, perfect. Then I think if people have questions, I'll try to answer.
You can unmute yourself.
Prabhu?
Yes, Mataji.
I was thinking not only because of, definitely because of his books, because I have vague idea whether I have seen Prabhupada. Maybe in the 70s, I might have seen him somewhere in Philadelphia. But other than that, without his book distribution, we would have never gotten connected with anyone. And I think the first thing is because he wanted us to read his books, because he is there in his books. I think I read Ishopanishad first, and then a couple of his other books and Bhagavad Gita. That's how we got introduced into this system. So, and also we should know, we also know Paramatma lives within our heart. We are part and parcel of Paramatma.
Right.
So those two concepts, because of his books, Srila Prabhupada's books, our love for him and the books he loved and he wrote, I think we got connected to that. Without that, we will be lost in this Kali Yuga. I think that is the greatest gift we got out of everything else that goes on with this coronavirus or whatever it is. I think because of his books, and through books, we have all these bhakti centers and different locations that we can communicate with each other and be supportive of each other. Otherwise, it will be very difficult right now at this time. So I just wanted to mention that, and thank you very much.
Welcome, Mataji. Wonderful point, Mataji. Very wonderful point that it is with Prabhupada's books. Prabhupada said books, Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj actually said the books are Brihad Mridanga. The sound when you play the books can influence people across the oceans. And that's exactly right. And Prabhupada, through his purports, is actually preaching to us. Even today, let's say, for example, we are sitting here and reading off of Prabhupada's purports. Prabhupada is the one who's giving this knowledge. We are just simply discussing what Prabhupada has actually taught us in these purports. Thank you so much, Mataji. Very wonderful point.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Other questions, comments?
That's a very good point, Prabhu. I like that point which you described, right? The lineage, how Arjuna has been referred, that you are a Aryan, and then who knows the value of life. So the same way, how we can relate to that, that to our practical life, right? So we are from the same lineage. Then we are actually Aryans. We know the value of life. So we have to utilize that. If we don't utilize that, then there's no point in being in this lineage, actually.
Right.
Okay.
That's exactly right, Prabhu. I mean, this lineage is such a unique gift, such a special gift. I mean, there are many spiritual schools. Of course, there are many general sampradayas as well, but there are many aspiring spiritualists who don't understand what we understand, and what we understand is thanks to Prabhupada. I mean, I wouldn't know anything about the spiritual world if we hadn't heard about it from Prabhupada.
Yes. We should be eternally indebted to Srila Prabhupada for giving us knowledge. Otherwise, just imagine on this Friday night, I've been in some club or some party, spending time. So rather here we are discussing about Bhagavad Gita, so very nice.
Yes.
Thanks Srila Prabhupada for that.
Absolutely, Prabhu. Can never thank him enough for it. Very nice point, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Anyone else has any question or comments? Otherwise, we can end the class here. So sorry, Prabhu. So we have another Zoom class. That is why we are hurrying up today.
Okay, Prabhu.
It was unscheduled, actually. It was not in the schedule, but suddenly came up. It's a meeting, actually. It's not about preaching. It's a meeting.
Okay, Prabhu.
So some of the devotees already left. They have at 8:30 and we have at 9 o'clock, some devotees.
Okay.
So again, thank you very much, Prabhu, for such a wonderful explanation. And we will dwell upon that point, and then hopefully we'll advance a little bit practically implementing that point. Yeah.
That's our attempt, and try to. That's what we are all trying, and we'll if we support each other together, I think maybe together we can make some progress.
Yes.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Keep yourself healthy at this time. Be
Thank
safe, and that you can come back and share with us all the great ideas you have, great thoughts. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Dandavat pranam. Thank you very much.
So I
Thank
have,
you, Prabhu.
Very much, Prabhuji. Dhanvat
Hare
pranam.
Krishna. Dandavat pranam,
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna.
before we launch, I have a couple of. So tomorrow 10:30 we have Pauganda Pravachan. Just a repeat. Okay, so where like the Pauganda Pravachan at 10:30 tomorrow, and then 7:30 tomorrow evening Adigadadar Prabhu's session. So please join.
Mhm. Thank you so much.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
कृपा सिंधुभ्यैवश्च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैश्वनेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय।
Jai.
कृष्ण की जय। समवेत भक्त की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय।
Jai.
ग्रेस अजित कृष्णा प्रभु जय।
Thank you.
Vibol Sira Prabhupada.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.